Welcome to another edition of Skulls and Drones. I'm your host, Jason O'Neill with Condor Creative. Today we're going to take a look at the vampire crypt in the Erie Cemetery. The Erie Cemetery is by far one of the most notable cemeteries in Erie, PA. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's situated on 75 acres of land and sits between Cherry Street and Chestnut Street. The cemetery was founded in 1850 when citizens realized the need for an urban cemetery to fit their burial needs. They petitioned $1,500 to gain the money to purchase the land that this cemetery now sits on. It's important to note that this cemetery houses some of the most elite industrialists from the city's past. Back then in the 1850s, 1840s, Erie was a booming industrial town. There was a lot of money, and among a number of the mausoleums that are burrowed into the ridge in the cemetery is what we're going to talk about today, the Vampire's Crypt. The crypt is not adorned with elaborate features. In fact, it is generic in nature, but did not begin that way. Above the darkened marble slab that blocks the entrance hovers a lintel where a name was once inscribed but has since been deliberately chiseled away, only leaving an insignia of floral in the form of the letter V. I wonder what that could mean. The mausoleum is owned by Gertrude Brown, but there is no one by that name inside. The first person buried inside the mausoleum was G.W. Goodrich, who died on November 14, 1884, but several others would soon join him there, 3 of which had been exhumed from a nearby non-denominational cemetery and moved into the crypt. Cemetery records show that over time there have been 7 individuals interred within the marble vault. Some records include names and dates of passing, but the records are incomplete and sketchy at best. Now this is when the story starts to get good. The legend that surrounds the crypt also does not identify the occupant in question, but states that within the vault lies the undead body of a true vampire. It is said that the man had journeyed to Romania and upon his return to Erie, died shortly after of consumption. It was only a short time after his burial that strange and horrifying events began to occur. Dead bodies were soon being discovered in the suburbs that surrounded the cemetery. Each of them possessed puncture wounds on their necks, and their bodies were drained of blood. It was the maintenance man that lived on the grounds who discovered the evil creature's secret. In response, the crypt was burned, the doors chained, and the name above the opening violently removed for all time. But this is not where the legend ends. Legends can be persistent, and as mortals, we get curious. Many attempts have been made to enter the crypt throughout the past decades. One successful attempt was made sometime in the 1930s by a young man that was determined to see who slumbered inside the vault. Armed with a chisel and a crowbar, the young man was able to enter the tomb. Just before dawn, he opened the tomb to find a putrid stench to welcome him. After composing himself with a foul odor, he entered the tomb to discover a rotten wooden coffin with scantily enclosed and a desiccated corpse. In order to have proof that he did indeed enter the tomb, the youth snatched a ring from its withered finger and fled the scene before the sun rose. Immediately, the boy ran to his best friend's home, eager to share his conquest, while providing proof of his mission having been completed. The boy swore his friend to secrecy and then returned home to rest. The second young man could not wait to share the story with his other friends, and after school, he and a group of other young men trekked to the first youth's home in order to see the ring that he had claimed from the bloodthirsty beast. Upon their arrival, they were met at the door by his mother, who explained that her son was asleep. But the boys insisted on speaking with him. When she went to his room to tell him that he had visitors, she had found her son dead. His eyes stared blankly back at her. After the event had been investigated, the crypt was once again sealed and chains were placed on the opening to ensure that what evil lie within would remain, at least until the next, soon-to-follow attempt to enter the grave. Several stories have arisen from the curious which have tampered with the crypt. One such is more recent than the first. It is said that a group of teenagers organized a party outside of the crypt. After the story had been shared with the group, one young man mocked the legend and climbed upon the marble vault in defiance of the creature that resided within. Something happened while the boy was perched upon the roof. As it was dark, the remainder of the group could not see him, but all of them heard his shriek before he tumbled to the ground. Later that evening, the boy was admitted to the local hospital. Upon waking, he immediately began to scream, alerting the nearby nurses that something was terribly wrong. Before the nurses could reach his nearby room, the boy had climbed out onto the window ledge and leapt to his death to the pavement below, leaving both the hospital staff and his friends baffled over what had been so horrible that he would have jumped from the window to escape. There are several other tales that have arisen concerning the vampire crypt, deeming it as an icon worthy of visiting if you find yourself in this area. So if you do happen to make the trip to come out and check out the Erie Cemetery, all the amazing vaults and mausoleums, and of course, the vampire crypt, make sure you watch out for the Erie Cemetery coyote. See, that's our latest urban legend going around about the cemetery. This coyote has been spotted here for a long time now. They've been trying to trap it, catch it. Some people were even trying to kill it. I guess this thing is pretty crafty. I'm rooting for the coyote if you ask me. It's not bothering anybody. Let him run free. Well, until it eats somebody's dog. Let's hope that doesn't happen. So thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Skulls and Drones. I'm your host, Jason O'Neill from Condor Creative. And remember, if you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day, guys. Condor.